Good evening, my fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. It is I, and I am Guy, coming to you from Applewood Station, where it is 0 degrees and snowing. So there is that. Um, the looks like we're going to be. Hey, Brent. I still feel greenish or yellowish or something over here. I need to think with some more camera stuff. Right? I mean, don't I look kind of, I don't know. Like, maybe I should be like more. There we go. A little bit. That's a little bit better. Better? Better. Not like bright red like I was yesterday. I feel like I was very red yesterday. You know what I mean? Just really. And so now I look a little bit more color adjusted. I don't know, maybe. Yeah, a little bit more color adjusted there. I look yellow. Are you yellow? A warm light color. I wish to have a good pallor in my face, a pallor that is palory, not to be confused with calorie. Yeah, so how you doing tonight? How are things out in Topeka? I have to right color look. Anyway, I'm gonna just start up. Good old Photoshop. Can't wait for your vacation. Yeah. I'm having infinite struggles, it looks like. I just kind of tired of struggling. Oh, I just more school, money, dumb, you know? It's it's frustrating. That's all. But it's just all the same school struggling dumb stuff. That's all. Just having that problem, you know. So adulting. Yeah, pretty much just adulting. I mean, it's all fine. There's nothing wrong or horrible. It's just meh. But it is. It's all school struggle dumb. And we're, oh, we can't give you that money, and you have to have this money, and like trying to get a loan and a school loan cleared, and they're asking me for my income and saying you don't make enough money, and I'm like, I I'm a student. I mean, what do you want me to do? Work two 40-hour jobs plus my 40 hours a week of full-time student? And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out if I clicked something wrong, or did something just go wonky? What's the story? So, anyway, I don't know. Just, it's like, I don't. mm. The long and the short of it, though, is just that Frustrating. It's just the world is full of presumption, and I guess I'm sort of tired of the presumption that everybody is trying to take advantage of things. You know what I mean? Because, we made all these rules because back in 1973, somebody tried to take advantage. Hey, Can. And so we've got this rule in place. And I know you're not trying to take advantage. We're very sorry, but the rule is still in place and there's nothing we can do. So you're just going to have to figure out a way to do it yourself. And I'm like, okay, but we're talking about large sums of money that I've never had command over in my entire life. And you just want me to just, somehow manage to come up with it myself. Yeah, and we're sorry. We're sorry that you're stuck in this because we understand, you're not trying to take advantage from anything, but yeah. That's just I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the presumption that I am trying to take advantage of something. You know, I just kind of burned out on that one. It's it's just one of those frustrating things. Yeah. And the problem of course is that that's not the way to run the world. That's just a lousy ass way to run the world. It's a lousy ass way to run anything. You wouldn't do that. Your child, did something stupid when they were 2 years old, and so they'll never be able to own a bicycle or, like have a video game machine or, you know, and it's like you can't. That's not the way to run a thing. That's just not reasonable. Your best friend borrowed money and didn't give it back to you when you were 18, and at 60 you still won't loan the money. That's not the way we run these things. That's just, it doesn't even matter if it's, that's just not the way it goes. Not only that, it also seems to not address the problems. Because one of the things that I am learning is, man, we don't do stuff in a vacuum. We don't steal from people because, well, it just seems like a steely day today. I'm going to steal from somebody. We don't break the law because, hey, there's a little traffic light in my neighborhood. It's a really weird random traffic light. And it's in the middle of nowhere with nobody around. And it's the most frustrating traffic light because usually it's red and you come up on it and you have to wait for the little signal to signal your vehicle and you have to wait for it to cycle through. And while waiting there, you wait for no one. And tonight, on the way back from the store, I ran it by accident. I didn't mean to. I wasn't in any hurry. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't there. I just, for some reason, treated it like a four-way stop, stopped at it, and went. If there had been a cop right there, they would have given me a ticket for it. And it's like, I was just being human. There wasn't a soul around. I didn't get in front of anybody. I didn't do anything. But running a red light's a moving violation. That's a $10,000 fine and 10 points off your license. So it would have been one of those nice. And it's one of those really weird things. Right. And it would remove me from being able to be a driving instructor. It would have totally wiped out my career. And all because I just had a moment. There wasn't a soul around. I put no one at risk. There wasn't anybody there. It was the middle of the night, you know? And it's just one of those things. It's like we've got no buffer zone for mistakes. Yet, as human beings, we all make blips and errors, but we've got zero tolerance for any of it. And there are people out there that have even less tolerance for it. If you end up being the victim of the system, or if you end up being a victim of just sheer bad luck, that's just too bad, you know? And it's that in and of itself fatigues me. It fatigues me greatly. I'm bending this controller here. It fatigues me greatly because I've got a number of friends who They took the wrong fork in the road in their 20s or in their 30s. And today they are just struggling. And it's all because they took the wrong fork in the road in their 20s and the 30s. But man, there was that one guy in 1984 who intentionally took that road in order to manipulate the system. And therefore, these people are stuck and they will never get out of this. And that's a problem. That's a poison in the society. It definitely is a poison. It's not positive, it's not productive, and it doesn't help anybody. And I've been thinking about that a lot these days. I've been thinking about our poisons and the things that screw up our society so much and everything. And it's just frustrating. It's went out today and saw that the little $15 plastic piece on my sprinklers decided to be really strong, so the metal gave way. And during the freeze 2 nights ago, it shattered part of my sprinkler system because I turned the water off from the house to the sprinklers, but did not blow out the sprinkler and release the pressure from the valve. So, of course, it froze and and broke through the metal. So now the entire piece now is going to have to be replaced. So instead of $15 next spring, I'm going to have to spend like $300. It's been kind of a crappy couple of days. I've got a thing to go to tomorrow, and it's supposed to snow like a son of a gun. And it's on school campus, and it's supposed to snow, and this campus is closed. Like, Jefferson County, the school system has closed and our campus is closed, but this thing is still going and they expect me to be there still. And it's going to snow all day and be brutally, brutally nasty all day long. And it's not going to let up. Yeah, I need a vacation. I just need a vacation. I need a break. I need to get out of this. And of course, the election results have hit hard with a lot of people. And I'm not excluded from that. The election results did not go the way I wanted it to go either. Um, Yay! And that's a thing. I mean, I think we all have election results that don't go the way they want them to. So that didn't go the way I wanted it, and that's okay, but it still adds to the general malaise of the universe today. Right, Helen? And I'm going, so yours is out too. Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird too, because looking out there right now, everything looks relative. I mean, there's snow on the ground, there's snow in the grass, but there's no snow on the roads. But I know that won't last because tomorrow morning it's going to be really cold, and over the night, the snow that melted on the roads is going to turn to ice, and then it's going to snow on that. Yeah, kiddo's out too. So, yeah, I just and it's hard because, of course, I got a message from Ron, and he wants to know, rightfully so, that, what am I doing with Silver Pentacle 3? And I had to be honest with him. I'm just out of spoons. I just don't have the spoons. And I've been under constant pressure. Um, and so the constant pressure with people who are neurospicy, constant pressure really affects their executive function. And so it makes their impulse control and executive function things get far, far worse. Um, and it's hard to explain this particular aspect of neurospicy to people, but it's it has that same feel as if you've ever been so depressed that you don't want to do anything but lay in bed. That's what it feels like when our executive function fails. It's not a depression for us necessarily, although it can lead to depression. It's not an executive, it's not like we are in depression. But what it feels like is that same feeling. So you can sit there all day long and say, get to work, get to work, get to work, and know that we are sitting there in our heads going, get to work, get to work, get to work. And we just cannot move. We can't get the pen to move. We can't get the hand to move. We can't get out of bed. We can't, we're just, and once that executive function failure hits, that's, boy, there is just, oof, it's brutal. And I have been in this constant stress pressure thing for, it's going on, I would say probably 10 months now. No, I guess it's been less than that, 9 months. Right. We started school and all was good. Then they took away all the Title IV stuff. And they took away my scholarships and left me with the bill at school, and all of that stuff happened. And that just put me into survival mode. And I really think since that point, I have been in high pressure survival mode the entire time. And that's making it very difficult for my executive function. It's making it very, very hard to get moving. Um, so, I mean, obviously, medication helps. Um, I get a burst from taking my ADD meds in the first thing in the morning every morning. But obviously, right now, I can't take my ADD meds. They will keep me up all night. I will be awake until 6 a.m. And so I can't take them now, and and they have already worn off. And so I'm just sitting over here kind of going, I don't want to do anything. Um, and it's hard. It's very difficult to explain executive function failure. It was interesting though. I did apply for a job. I've been applying for jobs nonstop because I'm not making enough money and nobody's hiring me. So I'm back to believing somebody's out there, saying, don't hire Guy because he's clearly a bad human being for some reason. You believe in conspiracy theories when the logic doesn't make any sense. I applied for a job and it said, are you disabled? And then in a list of under the disabled, it says, are you neurodivergent? Do you have autism or ADHD? And I'm like, that's never been an option for me. I never gave it a second thought. I never thought about clicking that or signing it, or, you know what I mean? I never thought that I was disabled, but I guess we were just having this discussion the other day. A friend of mine who's also neurospicy I was talking to her about this, and I said, we'll likely never be managers. And the reason that we won't make good managers and the reason we don't make good managers is because we don't catch the subtle ebbs and flows of democracy or of the diplomacy. And we don't catch the little things that are going on between managers. And yeah, hey, Sarge, the thing is, that almost seems to me in my head insulting to disabled people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not disabled. I can function just fine. And it's a weird, I don't want to call it survivor guilt, but it's almost like a survivor guilt. I'm like, I'm not disabled. It's just my brain's stupid. Um, but I was talking to him about being a manager. And I said, the interesting thing is we'll never make good managers because we tell it like it is. And that actually pans out. Every job I've ever had, there comes some point where I get crossways with a manager, and that's the way it goes. And my upward mobility is shot from that point forward. And I'll never be a manager because I mean this happened with my driving company. I want to help them make a better curriculum. But the first meeting that I had, I walked into the meeting with all the people and I said, "Thank you for inviting me here. This curriculum is messy and it's all kinds of screwed up. And I'm so glad we're getting to working on it." And there was a pause, and the person in the meeting said, "I wrote that curriculum, and that was my boss. And I haven't helped since." And I mean, it literally, I torpedoed my own. And so the curriculum is exactly the same. We still don't teach about like all of the Colorado snow laws and things like that, which I think is probably important. But the person who wrote it was a guy from Indiana and a guy from California. And so they didn't think about all of the Colorado specific laws for winter. And so we don't teach it. The curriculum is objectively wrong. That's not even a question. The problem is that I opened my big mouth and told them it was wrong. And so it is what it is. But because of that, we will never be managers. I mean, there's just, well, and I'm understand that I'm saying that with frustration. I am absolutely sure that there are phenomenal managers out there who are neurospicy. Um, but a lot of us just can't keep our big mouth shut. And we say things that are true. In this instance, objectively, the curriculum needs help. Um, and objectively, that is true. That is not a question. And even my direct boss, who had no power over all of this, thinks she knows it too, but she can't do anything because these were people who were above me. So there's nothing we can do. That's happened with every job I've ever had. I go in there, I can see that there's a problem in X, Y, or Z. I say, "Hey, I found a problem in X, Y, or Z." They say, "Let's call a meeting." I go into the meeting, I say, "There's a problem with X, Y, or Z," and there's silence, and I can tell something went wrong. And well, and I mean, and that's the thing. I've been challenging the status quo since 1995, and it hasn't gotten me anywhere. I still make less than 25K a year, and that's the problem. You can challenge the status quo as long as you have the money to do so, and we don't, because we will, that's the thing. And I love the idea of challenging the status quo. In fact, my friend, because she's a Gen Zer, um, yeah, probably is. She's a Gen Zer or whatever. She's young because, of course, I'm on campus. So now all of my buddies are 18, 19, and 20, which is fine because I've got the mentality of a 14-year-old. So they're all still much more mature than I am. Um, but she had said, what we need to do is just make a bunch of companies that are neurospicy. And I said, that's great, except that with our executive function, we're not really good at running businesses. So there's that. That doesn't mean we can't. I'm just saying we're, kind of not so good at it. That's all. Um, so that's the thing. I, I'm feeling particularly gripey tonight, and I'm sorry. Like I said, medication's worn off, so I'm a little jumpy and spacey and kind of all over the place. But I mean, part of this was looking at we're artists. That's the important part, is to say artists. You have to say it with lots of ease. Um, and I mean, that's a thing. It is a thing. Um, I think that's a wise move on her part, though. I think she's onto something. I also think, though, the world is slowly changing. And people are starting to see more and more people who are neurodivergent as an asset and not as a liability in their company. They're seeing that we can see patterns that they don't see. We think outside of the box, or very rarely are we in the box. Um, Starch, Way too true, man. It's way too close to home there. But on the same token, I'm 50. I am so tired of being perpetually struggling for survival. And I have a lot of empathy for those people who are that way. So I took a survey at Iacon that went well. What also went well was I did a similar survey at Mile High Con. Thank you for changing the subject. Um, um, so, it's because the surveys went well. The data is hard to parse, and that's another one of those things. I've just got a ton of data to parse. You know what I mean? I've got like so much data. Got to deal with all this data. I'm not even really sure. There is something really interesting that came out of the interviews at. Um, right, no, you're fine. I'm teasing you because I'm like, no, no. Actually, this is probably a better place to go. Um, but one of the things that has come up is there are an awful lot of neurodivergence at these geek conventions, more than the average population. So much so, I actually was lulled into a belief that a lot of us, this population, like the world, has just become 50% neurodivergent. You know what I mean? Like I've been just under this belief that somehow all of us are neurodivergent, which is one of the reasons why I have a hard time believing in anything like being disabled. Um, because if 50% of us are all neurodivergents, then I'm not disabled. I'm just part of the population. But then I start teaching kids, and there's only two neurodivergents in my class. Every so often, I'll get a couple of neurodivergents or whatever. And you can tell we don't act the same. And if you're paying close attention, you can see the people who are neurodivergent even through their masks. Um, and especially if you're 14, you don't have real good control over your masks to begin with, because that's still early on in your development cycle. So it's pretty clear and evident. So I've started to realize that there are an awful lot of us at these conventions, like a significant portion of us. And part of it, I believe, is that it's a safe space, right? If you think about our convention spaces, they're a safe space. They're safe for LGBT. They're safe typically for people of color. They're safe for all kinds of places like that. Um, right. And so now the question is, did we gravitate towards conventions because they were a safe space? Or did we create our own safe space? If you think about the LGBT community, they have been gravitated towards the stage for years, like hundreds of years, because typically speaking, people who perform or on stage, that was a safe space for LGBT. Well, they didn't create the stage. The stage has always existed. So that was an interesting thought. I mean, they gravitate towards that. And now I'm sitting here going, did we create our own safe space? And if so, what an interesting way of dealing with this. What an interesting question to ask. So I started interviewing. Yeah, right. Oh man, 240 DPI. That's just brutal, man. Yeah, but I could see the print press is just not taking 240 DPI very well. Um, and make everything just like 2 inches shorter on every page, and you'd be like, "Ah, what are you doing? Why? Why?" And put in some music here because we're not musicking. So, Ken, if you're still out there, we've added of getting music from Incomtech and putting it in because we can preload our own music. So I've been thinking about getting Incomtech music and loading it in so that we can run that instead. Because not sure how much I don't know where we stand on AI just yet. But I think by playing it, we kind of are making a stand. So anyway, I'm kind of thinking of doing. Oh yeah. 12 inches by 15 inches, though. I can see that being a thing, right? I can see that being important at that size that you have the right resolution. Otherwise, you'll start seeing pixels. So I mean, at that size, that's big. In fact, I'm kind of amazed they're not making you do it at 600 because 12 by 15 is such a large size. Good night, Sarge. I hope. Hey, Sarge, if you have to drive into work tomorrow, please be careful. I think the drive in will be fine. I think it's the drive home that's gonna suck. So take care because the storm I think is coming up from the south. So it's gonna get worse the souther you go. So just be very, very careful. Might be a good time to not take the bird. You know what I mean? Because that's rear wheel drive and stuff like that. Might be better to take the other one. Just recommending. So either way, drive safely. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I think I'm gonna bail on the thing tomorrow. It feels silly to do that right now, but the schools have all closed. AI is making everything so complicated. It is. And it's just difficult. Yeah. See you later, Sarge. The size is the same, but the printer's going to see it the same. And I agree with you. It doesn't matter if the photograph is 2 inches by 3 inches. It really, this is the old problem child that we've had for hundreds of years, or not maybe not hundreds, since the 90s. It just feels like it was hundreds of years ago. The problem child that we've had for all this time, which is that no matter what you scan in is what we print. And so, if it comes in at 2 inches by 3 inches and you want to make it, 2 inches by 3 inches, 300 DPI, and you want to make it 12 by 15, and that it's either going to have to be at 72 DPI or you're going to have to adjust rescan the picture. So it is what it is. It is what it is. So I feel for you, man. I feel for you. So anyway, I'm getting deep beeps, probably from one of you guys. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like theater companies, it's not a given. That's fair. It's so funny, Helen. I I read you. Does that make sense? I read it. Like I get what you're saying, and I know you don't. You know, yeah, I get what you're trying to say, and that is that theater companies also have been very accepting towards neurospicy. But that's the thing, right? Because like there are pieces of that. That's what's beeping. Um, that's funny. That's cute. Um, and I'm not gonna complain or argue about it, but I mean that's part of this is that and I worry about that. I worry about that the neurospicy management thing when I'm working for NDK and for Iacon. Iacon has its own unique challenges because there's a lot of cultural minefields that I could walk happily into. And so I don't want to do that. I have already stepped into that one a couple of times. Um, well, I appreciate that, Helen. I appreciate you as well. Um, yeah. Well, and that's back to what I was saying. Like it's fine to be neurospicy, but we have to be responsible for what we do. I have stepped in it a couple of times, um, and it's not pleasant. There's a lot of loaded belief out there for a lot of things. So it's hard for me to see or understand sometimes that I have gone into a zone that I didn't know was a dangerous area and said something that I didn't know was loaded. And the other problem with it with neurospicy is that we have that rejection disorder. Um, and when we're rejected, it's extra hurty, and that doesn't help any. And part of that's probably trauma response. I'll bet you that a lot of the reason that neurospicy people have rejection disorder comes from trauma response, right? I mean, uh, when you're young, you're making mistakes. People tell you you're bad. You have no idea why you made that mistake. None of it makes any sense. They try to explain it to you. They try to tell you what was going on. But since you don't even understand the framework around why you made this mistake, at some point they just get frustrated and say, well, you just did the wrong thing. Don't do it again. And you're left with a bunch of rules to say when it's a Thursday and there's a full moon, never say the word binky when you're standing pointed north. Because that's the best you can make out of all of these rules is that there's just somewhere something like this. And so what ends up happening is you become terrified because you're like, well, I know I've got memory problems. I know I'm never going to remember this. And I've got a bunch of rules about Thursdays and Tuesdays when it's an alternating snowstorm and the lights are slightly pale. I can't say this certain word to this certain person or else I'm going to get in trouble, even though I need to ask this question, you know. So, yeah, exactly. And so we get this rejection disorder where we start to completely freak out when we do the wrong thing because it's become overwhelming to remember all of these ridiculously complex rules because we start imposing our own rules in it, right? You go into you go into the store and you meet a person and you're talking to the person and all of a sudden they've gone cold on you. You don't know why they went cold. And so you're not sure, and your buddy next to you sees this all happening and does a quick, thank you very much. We'll talk to you later. And then hauls you out of the building. And okay, what happened? And they're like, look, you can't say that to that person. Why? Well, because their position here is like this and your position is like this. Blah, 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 blah. No, I don't get it. Explain it. You know what? It doesn't matter. Just don't do that ever again. Never say that to that person. All right. So now, when I'm in a grocery store and I'm in the vegetable department, I'm not allowed to talk to people who have blonde hair because there's no other logic to it. It doesn't, we didn't get what you were talking about the social structure when we are 12 or whatever. So we didn't understand that social structure. So now we've got this rule that says when we're in a grocery store in the vegetable section, we're not allowed to talk to blonde-haired people, which is the best we could come up with at the time. And then, of course, oh no, you can talk to blonde-haired people in the vegetable section. That's stupid. Why would you do that? You can't talk to brown-haired people. Come on. Everybody knows that. Okay. Why? Well, and as you grow older, they can start to explain. But you still get this rejection disorder that starts to develop because now all of a sudden it just seems like it's completely random. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Everybody else understands it, but you don't. And you're just going to walk into a room and say, hi, and people are going to go, that's it, he's fired. And you'd be like, I don't know what the hell I just did. But now I got to figure out how to pay my mortgage. And all I said was hi. And you're like, I don't know what the hell happened. And so you get this rejection disorder. That doesn't help us any. Our rejection disorders then build and they become, it becomes a real issue. And I don't remember where I was headed on this one, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about letting, safe spaces and things like that. And I was saying that's the biggest problem. And so of course, that's what I was talking about. I am horribly worried when I'm in a situation where I know it's complex, right? There's a complex thing going on with IACON. There's cultures involved, not just the neurodivergent culture, not just the geek culture, but there are now other cultures being involved. And it's intentional. That's part of the drive of this particular convention. And I love it. And I revel in it. But I have to admit, I am terrified. And have already made a mistake. Like once made a mistake that was brutally, uncomfortable. And as I recall, even talking to my boss on this one, even she seemed really perplexed that I would make that mistake. Hey, Ray. And so, and understandably so. I mean, I don't blame her. I would have been shocked too in a vacuum. And I'm like, no, I did that. That was me. And it all made sense to everybody. Everybody understood, except it still was an error. And I still had to go apologize. And and after a while, of course, I understood what was going on. And I understood what I said and how I said it. And how it was presented and how it came through. But it's still, I asked if I should resign, and of course they didn't want me to resign. That was silly. So, but I mean, I was willing to because it's not the first time that I've caused waves and screwed something up because it's hard. It's even harder because I mask well. And so people don't know that I'm actually underneath all of this masking an ADD or neurodivergent. I'm trying to be more communicative about it. I'm trying to say more, tell people more, alert people more. But to me, it sounds like I'm just making excuses. Well, I didn't do this because I'm neurodivergent. I didn't do that because it was neurodivergent. I said the wrong thing because I'm neurodivergent. I just feels like I'm just telling people excuses as to why, I don't want to do this because I'm neurodivergent, I don't want to shovel my walk because it's neurodivergent or whatever, you know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me. And I have to remember that sometimes it is a legitimate problem. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's real. That is real. And even though, and that's another one of those things, like with us neurodivergents, we tend to have, if you say that there's, I've been, I've been better, I guess. Um, I'm doing fine. Doing fine, Ray. We're just talking about the problems with interfacing sometimes and how it's difficult for some of us. Yeah. And I mean, part of this is that you want to be able to tell people that you're willing to work with them, you're willing to do the things with them, you're willing to discuss stuff, and you're willing to do the job. You just need a little bit of you need a moment or two here to gather your thoughts. I was in a meeting at with the NDK people, and I was getting tangled up in my words, and I was trying very hard to say something, and it was critical to me. But my brain was producing purple puppies as images, and it was not giving me anything useful to say. I knew we had a thing that was critical. And the con chair, she looked at me and she said, just take a moment. Think your thoughts through. We'll wait. We'll go on break and we'll come back from the break and you can tell us what you're thinking. And that was such a wonderful room. She gave me space. And I'll never forget that. That was so useful and nice. She was like, she's not neurodivergent. She's very, very, very straightforward thinking. She's one of those, both of the con chairs with both of these bosses are very sharp, very intelligent, and very organized. Like intimidatingly organized for me, because I am not organized to save my life. But they're both very sharp, and I respect both of them so immensely. And it's a wonderful thing to have them give me a moment, because I often feel like I'm no match for these people. They're both so sharp. And I know I have a sharpness. I know I'm intelligent. I know I've got thinky processes going on upstairs. But I feel like it's so chaotic it's not useful. You know what I mean? Like I'm very, very smart, except that all I can think about is tiny trucks from Japan, and therefore I am completely useless to help you, So it's not true, but it's the way I feel, The chaos is real. And it is, I think the best thing that I have been learning recently, though, is the chaos isn't me. I'm not defined by that chaos. It just happens to be there. It's the difference between constantly looking for the squirrel and getting distracted by the squirrel and realizing the squirrel is in your head. And you're fighting the squirrel too. And the people around you don't want to deal with a squirrel, and you don't want to deal with a squirrel. Right? Just imply it. You will understand. But I mean, that's a difference in, right? Just saying. Those tri-wheel mini trucks. I'm just saying. Oh yeah. I know each and every one of the 950 episodes of Star Trek. I know all of them. And 90% of the time, you can ask me a question, and if I'm not thinking about it, I will like that. Hey, Landauer. Good to see you, man. Good to see you, bro. Too soon. Peanut. I like Peanut. No, wait. I like Peanut. I like the name Peanut. But that's one of the things that really... Yeah, oh yeah. You're behind, bro. Gotta catch up on Lower Decks. Because it's good for you. It's good for you. Just saying. It's good for you. So... But yeah, that's anyway. So all right. What are we doing? We're not doing anything. Yeah. Strange New Worlds, they've already released like a teaser for Strange New Worlds. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like I can pull up any one of those 950 episodes of Star Trek instantly. And yet I can't remember. Strange New Worlds is so good. And Lower Decks is so good. And I'm sad about losing Lower Decks. And I've got to admit, really digging the idea of Star Trek Legacy. I wish they'd pull that one, but they're not. They're not going to get to that one, I don't think. And that's the thing. I mean, like, there was Discovery and all of those, and I did enjoy Discovery, and I enjoyed the first 2 seasons of Picard just fine. I don't have any problem with either one of them, and I'm really not into naysaying or anything like that. I know what people think about those two. But I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them just fine. They were okay. I mean, I wasn't like, oh, and Prodigy was brilliant. I really liked Prodigy. I didn't think I would have liked Prodigy. It's got the animation style that I'm not hot on. I don't like that CGI style. I'm actually having that problem right now with the new Gundam, because the new Gundam is super realistic CGI. But Prodigy was solid. And Prodigy, so far, I don't know whether they've been picked up for another season or not. So don't read too much into this. But that finale on the last season they stuck that landing. They did a really good job. They stuck the landing well. They did a brilliant job on that. So I dig Prodigy, which I did not expect. Discovery was beautiful. Had a lot of beauty to it. They made a couple of missteps that I think I would have made a different choice on, but shrug. I'm okay with that. It's not the first time Star Trek's done that, so... I mean, there's a bunch of episodes that I don't rewatch on my rewatch cycle. Some of them even from the original series. I very rarely watch The Apple. I very rarely watch Spock's Brain. On the flip side, I'm almost always rewatching, the big ones, Sitting on the Edge of Forever and Balance of Terror and things like that. And it's not that I don't. I mean, but even when you have things like Spock's Brain, as a great example, this is a really, really rough episode. It wasn't a very good episode, but it has some really stellar moments between Spock and McCoy. So the episode still has value, right? And then there's the ones that bother me because I didn't understand it as a kid. The empath is one that I didn't understand as a kid. And for some reason, I watched The Empath a lot as a kid. I didn't understand that episode, mostly because I don't think I had a lot in the way of empathy at the time. Um, and so I think that I didn't grasp what they were talking about. I didn't understand it. And even today, it gives me a weird feeling in my stomach watching that episode, um, because I still don't think I grasp all of it. I think that there's stuff going on in that episode that I don't quite grasp. And that's, from 1967. Landauer, I didn't know that either until just the second. I was today years old when I learned that. How do you electroplate it if it's plastic? I mean, I believe you. I absolutely believe you. I just don't know how it's done. But see, I'm now in toss mode. You can tell because I'm talking like Kirk. I'm gonna lean over on my command chair and press buttons. Which he never actually did this. This is the way that all the people on Saturday Night Live mocked it, because of course at the time I would watch anything. I would watch anything that was Star Trek related, even if it was them mocking Star Trek. Spray carbon paint. Oh. That makes sense, actually. Yeah, I could do that. That could happen. Sixth replay. TNG to Voyager. Deep Space Nine Enterprise. Orville. You know what? Orville and Galaxy Quest are Star Trek. I don't even bother. It's not. It's to me, they're just Star Trek. I just pretend like it's Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. You know what I mean? Or Picard and Riker. I just don't even. They're just another ship in the Star Trek universe. The Orville just lives in the Star Trek universe. Just happens to be a different ship. A lot of people are 2 or 6ers. I've noticed that. I noticed that the people who are fans of 4 primarily, like, don't quite grasp the other ones. They're 4. And this is not true now. It was more true in the 80s, 90s. Those are the people who were ancillary and hadn't quite dove deep into Star Trek, which made me think that 2 and 6 have a lot more lore involved. So the people who were really into the whale movie, because it was a lot of jokes and there was a lot of good stuff going on in there, were really big on that one, because that told them, or that was fun to watch, and it was an entertaining show, but didn't have a lot in the way of lore. Necessarily, you didn't need to know a lot before that. If you're watching 6, you kind of need to know about the conflict between the Klingons and the Federation. 500 cigarettes one. Yes, that is Orville. Bortus and his cigarettes. But yes, that's Orville. And what's so funny is Orville, when Orville first came out, we were like, there's no way that would have fit in the universe anyway. And then Lower Decks came out, and now it all fits in the universe just fine. 3 is the most tragic, and a lot of the reason that 3 is so tragic is the loss of the Enterprise, and the loss of David. So both of those are, major hits for Kirk. I think the most interesting thing is in the scene where Saavik tells Kirk that David, spoiler alert, that David was killed. The scene plays out, and Bill Shatner misses the seat. He was supposed to sit down heavily in the captain's chair, and instead he misses. But like a good actor, he just keeps going. And they kept that take because it adds to the just complete crushing pain that Kirk feels at that moment. I love the story behind that. You know what I mean? I love the behind the scenes piece almost as much as I love the scene itself. I remember 3 very fondly because it was 1984 and I was 12. And I think the neurodivergence, he was standing and he was supposed to fall backwards onto the captain's chair. And so like fall back into the chair. And instead he was one step too far forward. So he missed his mark, is what they call that. They put a piece of tape on the floor so that you know that you're supposed to stand here. That's what on your mark means. The mark is on the floor. So when they say on your mark, they're talking about a mark on a racetrack, but it's the same meaning. The meaning means you are ready to do the thing, whatever it is. And what they're talking about is a mark on the floor. So they've marked the floor for you to stand. And so Shatner was off his mark. He was half a step forward. So when he fell backward onto the chair, he was too far forward. And since he was supposed to be looking at the, not at the camera, but just past the camera for the scene, he wasn't looking back to see where the chair was. So he had to just fall backward and hope that the chair was there, and he missed it. He missed the chair. So he was too far forward, and his butt missed the seat. Shatner is surprisingly vibrant. I think it's also interesting that Shatner has recently been talking about the end of his days a lot. Not because he's dying. He's not dying per se. He just knows that, we don't really go past 120. So whether or not, if he could be the oldest person on the planet and he's only got about 10 years left, and maybe not for the oldest person on the planet, but he's only got about 10 years left where he can still answer questions and talk about Star Trek and what he did and all those things. And so that's the thing. So, but yeah, that's interesting. I do find Shatner to be surprisingly vibrant though. He's an interesting individual. I've never met Shatner. He's complicated. If Shatner were ever around, I wouldn't be... Geek Tink wouldn't be allowed to let me interview him. Because apparently he is somewhat brutal to his interviewers. And I'm not allowed to interview Star Trek actors that are tough on interviewers. Because I'm too much of a softie. And when it comes to Star Trek, I'm really too much of a softie. I usually interview people who are not part of the Star Trek franchise. So I'm assigned to the people, especially in, like, the last couple of interviews have been for shows I've never really watched. So welcome back. Hi. So that's kind of funny. Anyway. So yeah, I think we're looking for a storm to come in at some point here. And I'm thinking I want to not attend the thing tomorrow that I've got to go to for on campus, because it starts at 9 and goes until 5. It's an all-day event. It's a great opportunity. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Interviewing them is a a different world because you're in a professional status. So you can interview them and they expect you not to be a geek, you know. So I walk in there with my communicator badge and everything like that on my chest, and they immediately go, "Oh God, he's going to ask me about what Kirk was thinking in episode 43." You know, it's like, and I don't ever ask that, of course, because I know better. But it's interesting because there we go again. That's one of those hallmarks of the neurodivergent, right? You've obsessed about this one concept. And so, and that's another one that I actually now can appreciate and understand. Um, here you are, you're watching episode whatever, it doesn't matter, episode 43, we'll just make it up, right? And in the scene, Captain Kirk does this thing. And you don't quite understand what Captain Kirk was doing. Mostly because it all is perfectly obvious to everybody else but you. You didn't get it because it was a subtext, and you don't read subtext. So you're like, okay, Captain Kirk just did something really strange, and I don't understand it. So you go to see William Shatner, and you say, okay, in episode 43, Captain Kirk did this thing. What was he thinking? And William Shatner, being a normal human, says, what do I know? I'm an actor. You're not asking because you don't understand that. You know darn well he's an actor. You're hoping, since actors are supposed to actually be empathizing with their character, you're hoping that he thought it through when he read the script, and perhaps he can give you some insight on what that scene that you didn't understand to begin with meant. And so, it's become sort of a trope now that the Trekkies go in and ask, well, in episode 63, you were standing on this hillside and facing into the sun, but 3 seconds later, you were facing away from the sun. How did Kirk do that? Was it a transporter malfunction? When really it was just they missed their mark on the camera. And that's not what we ask. We're never asking that. I've never heard anybody except on Saturday Night Live ask questions like that. The questions they ask are always going to be, hey, I didn't understand this scene because I'm neurodivergent. I can't read subtext. And I know that they were writing subtext. And you, as an actor, you were supposed to be at least trying to understand the subtext in all of this because you have to in order to act your character out. Therefore, could you walk me through it? Because I missed it. But we can't say that. We don't know how to say that. We didn't have the toolkit for that. So we didn't have the tools for it. And so now I'm sitting here going, well, that became a trope. And there you are. There's the trope. The Trekkies. We just ask all these ridiculous questions about episode, 403. And of course, because that actually legitimately happened to me. I sat down with Terry Farrell, and she's the one that actually sort of made, and I'm not knocking Terry Farrell, by the way. Absolutely adore Terry Farrell. I sit down with her, and Troy, my buddy Troy, says, he'll be interviewing you because he's the Trekkie. And she looks at me with these wide eyes, and she's like, I'm just an actor. Like, in defense. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm not going to ask you anything. That's going to be, I'm not going to ask you, what was Dax thinking in episode 47B? So, but they all feel that way. And probably because, rightfully so, they misunderstand what the neurodivergents were saying. Because we're misunderstood routinely. We don't. I often say I don't read subtext and I don't speak it very well, right? So if I say to you something, it's probably exactly what it sounds like on the surface, Because I've had a number of people who, man, they'll say something and they'll be offended. You're like, how did you get offended? How did that offend you? How did that potentially, how did that possibly offend you? And you find out that in the culture, saying X, Y, or Z, it's kind of one of those things. If somebody says, does this dress make me look fat? And I say, yes, you know, stickers. I'm into stickers. That's one of those ongoing things. But not only do we not say subtext, but we also don't judge. If you walked up to me and said, does this dress make me look fat? I would say, yes. But it's not a, and you're a horrible human being because you're fat. I'd be like, yes. Does that bother you? Because it looks good on you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. I mean, why would you ask me that question? You know, that doesn't make any sense. But of course, there's a cultural subtext to that. And we all know that, I mean, that's the old joke, right? The wife comes in and says, does this dress make me look fat? And the husband says, yeah, and then ends up in heaven the next scene, you know, like doesn't even get the full sentence out before he's dead. See you later there, Garuda. Feel better, man. I didn't know you were feeling sick, but that NyQuil's kicking in and it'll kick your butt. I'll talk to you later. Good chatting with you. I've gone all over the place tonight. I am so sorry. I am completely all over the place in a space cadet. Well, you might be out sick tomorrow too, if depending on how the weather goes. So that's a bummer. I hate it when I'm sick. Here's like this massive pile of snow right here on my porch. And it's all because the snow on my roof all slid off at one point in time. I was sitting here and all of a sudden there's this wham, 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 wham. I appreciate that, Hal. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. But, you know, it's one of those things. Yeah, it's fair. You're a good human being, too. You're all good human beings. I was going to make some comment about one of you guys, but that would be an inside joke. And now I realize, hey, look at me, I'm growing. You don't want to make that statement because I think the individual would know exactly what I was saying and would laugh and chuckle, and everybody else would be offended. So, anyway, because anyway, but it's just that would because I think that the individual in question would know me very well and know that I'm just being funny and razzing. But anyway. So, yeah, that's the thing. I've been learning a lot about internally. Love you too, Landauer. I think the funniest part is you knew. But anyway, I don't remember what I was saying. I was saying something important, I'm sure. It was critical. I make that joke all the time to diffuse a specific bug in my system now. Because my dad used to say all the time to me, you know, if you forgot it, it must not have been important, which made me, good night, Garuda, feel better. He used to say that all the time to me to make me, you know, because he was trying to say, it's all right, don't worry about it, except that it was important. And often things were very important, and often I forgot it. And when I forgot it, it became a thing, and I got in trouble, and I got to the point where I started to believe that nothing was important to me. And I gaslit myself. I gaslit myself into believing that nothing was important. Because of that thing. Because if you forgot it, it must not have been important. Well, I've forgotten things like, you know, brushing my teeth or whatever. That and that is important. So, or I've forgotten the thing that got me busted in school, or I've forgotten my homework, or I forgot my whatever, and you know, and so what ended up happening was I ended up starting to believe that internally I didn't care about school because if it was important, I would have remembered it, right? And that was another one where I gaslit myself into believing I didn't care about school. I think I've also gaslit myself into believing I don't care about or I'm not good at math. Um, are you nighting the restream bot? I don't know if the restream bot cares. Are you just going to bed now, Helen? You heading out? You're heading out. That's cool. It was good chatting with you. No, you're sticking with me for the next 15. I'm only got about 15 minutes left, and then we're done for the night. Oh, yeah, it was Garuda. It's kind of hard because I use a restreamer, and so because I use a restreamer, we're pulling in people from all over the place. Even though he'd come into this thread onto my Twitch side, I think that if you're on the can side, because we're restreaming, you're not actually on my side. Oh wait, if you're on my side, why am I not doing this? No, this, so you can see my name. Because if you're on Can's channel, that's not who that is. So Can is under blankets. He's been making that statement all night. He's happy, he's blissful, he's under blankets, and he's thinking of stickers. Not exactly sure why he's thinking of stickers, but we're working on this. I'm not gonna lie, stickers sound like fun. Not gonna lie, I kind of want to make stickers. But anyway. But yeah. So, there you go. And like, for example, yeah, I know, right? And for example, Landauer is coming in off of Facebook, off of my Facebook, and stuff like that because Landauer is a buddy of mine and somebody I actually really like to chat with, and I like to argue with him. And that's one of the reasons why I was making the joke earlier, is because I really like to argue with him. It's one of my favorite pastimes, but I also respect him, so that's important. It's critical. So I mean, like, I argue with him, but I also respect him. So we can argue until the cows come home. I don't have any problems with it. Yep, we do. We have great arguments. The problem that I've got with Facebook, Landauer, is that I'll say something and you'll reply to it, and then Facebook will decide that I don't need to see that reply, and then I'll sit there and go three weeks later, I'm like, wasn't I saying something to Landauer? Seems like I was in the middle of a discussion with Landauer, and Facebook hid it from me. So I just want you to know I don't typically disengage, and I never rage quit. If I'm gonna quit the conversation with you, I'll say, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get anywhere on this one, or something like that, so you'll know I disengaged. So if you don't hear from me, that's not the way I handle it. But I know that a lot of the discussions that I've had with people are like, I guess Guy just gave up. I'm like, no, stupid algorithm just stopped saying that there was a response to it. So I didn't get the little icon up in the upper left-hand corner saying that I got a response. Or I don't even think it was that. I think what happens is I check on my phone to see what's going on. I'm in the middle of class or something, and I click on it to see what things are there. And, you got a zillion replies from this and a zillion replies from that. And then Landauer said that. And then that was it, And so I think that also doesn't help. So anyway, I just want you to know that. I enjoy arguing with you. It is a fun thing to do because you've got very interesting things to say, and I learn a lot from arguing with you. So I like arguing with you. I just want you to know that. And so please continue. Please continue arguing. So I'm gathering all this interesting, fascinating stuff. It enlightens me. And yours. Yeah. So Can has been making discussions about that too, about like moving to different social medias. I've been poking around at Threads. I find Threads to be interesting. Not, I mean, it doesn't help any that both Facebook and Instagram have, the fourth spot down as Threads. So it's giving you your thread feed in the middle of it and stuff. I find that to be interesting, but I'm having a hard time navigating its UI. I don't like its UI. It's uncomfortable for me, and it's one of those things. I get it. You can't do the same thing as everybody else without getting in trouble. So, but it also means that I'm starting to feel my age here, and I want all these social media platforms to get off my lawn because they're all being different, and they all have different rules, and I'm not good with rules to begin with. As anybody who's played an RPG with me knows, rules are not one of my top tens. The number of times while playing D&D that Alex, my co-host on Geek Tank, has said, "Guy, that's a rule." This has been a rule in D&D since D&D 1. Why are you still having a problem with this? The number of times he's had to say that to me. It's also the reason why I have a problem with a lot of them. One thing that's interesting though is I really enjoy Savage Worlds because it's really rules light. I dig Savage Worlds for being very rules light. Speaking of Landauer, because and I love the fact that I get to use all of my pretty dice. I'm just saying, somebody in Savage Worlds up there in the upper echelon is neurodivergent. And you can tell because it uses all the frickin' dice. I love the fact that it uses all my dice. Interesting does not use the 20 as much as I expected it to. Landauer, someday I'm going to give you a mission. Ask them why we can't have the 20 as a... why we don't use the 20 as much. In fact, I don't think we use the 20 at all, do we? Oh, we might. I don't remember. Anyway. But yeah. Yeah, Landauer and I are Savage Worlds buddies. That's where we go back. Oh, that's why. That makes sense. Yeah, it's like, and I always like when people subvert stuff. In Modifius's system, the 20-siders are used, but you want aces. So you want ones on your 20-sider. So every time I jail one of my 20s for getting me killed off in a D&D game, it ends up in my Modifius games for Star Trek Adventures. Yeah. It is. The 20 is a brutal, and I guess part of it is that I just haven't really seen the 20 that much so far. Knock on wood. I don't know. But there's a good example of it. I'm sure we've used the 20. I'm sure we've used the 20 many times in games. I'm sure I've used the 20 a lot. I just don't remember it. And so here I am going, why don't we use the 20? And you guys are going, we do use the 20, guy. Oh, okay. Because rules don't stick in my brain. They just don't stick. I want them to, but they don't. That's fine. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. So as long as everybody just nods, as long as all of you people who play with me go, guy, this is a rule. It's been a rule forever. Try not to be too patronizing. I know I deserve the patronizing, but be kind. Yeah, I've actually had to get on Alex's case I've known Alex since he was 15 and I was 18. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess the 20 only comes out as bad days. And and I also, I guess my characters don't fail the fear table very often, I guess. But yeah. But that's all right. I still love the fact I love the creative way that Savage Worlds uses the multi polyhedrals, especially since I am hopeless about getting polyhedrals, and I can't seem to stop myself from buying polyhedrals. So I now have like everybody else. Good night, Hallen. Have a good evening, my friend, and I will see you on the flip side. I'll be here as much as I possibly can, but do be aware that sometimes sometimes I have work to do and I just can't do it. Your Screamer character caused so many roars. I could see that. See, Landauer actually like works hand in hand in this zone. So Landauer is the one during games that I turn to Landauer and go, "Psst, what do I have to do here?" Landauer and Dustin. Because both of them are actually really kind to me whenever I forget all the rules. So I'm good with it. You know, as long as I don't get chewed on for it too much. Because I apparently do not retain them. Which is funny. One of the things I really like doing is reading rule books. Like before I go to bed at night, I like to grab a rule book and read it. And a lot of it is because in my brain there's so much potential for what we could do here and all the things. And we trauma bonded over that. I'm still kind of, I'm sad about that project, but it was a good project. I'm kind of bummed. Still bummed about it. We did good work. I got good stuff out of it. Some of the art that came out of that particular project made great portfolio pieces. Because I did a bunch of maps, and I had to make the maps look like they were worn and things like that, and they ended up being great portfolio pieces. So I'm not gonna complain too much. Kind of bummed about it, but it's all good. So, but that's another one where wasn't. Yeah, I mean, people do get to see it out of. People do get to see it out of my portfolio. Some of it. Except as I was telling Ron, I'm probably stepping down from all of that. The public art side. You know, it's just. It's just one too many spoons and it doesn't bring in enough cash. I mean, straightforward, I love doing art. I will continue doing my comic, but my comic is going to be my comic. And I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep plugging on Bellatrix Rising and move down that road. And it may take me years to create an issue, and that's fine. I'm not in any hurry. But it's not bringing in enough money and I don't work fast enough. And that's just really what it boils down to. So, yeah, and that's fine. I am enjoying becoming a cultural anthropologist. I am fascinated by the mechanisms that society runs on. This is so... Long live Bellatrix Rising! Thank you, sir. It'll always be there. I'm not going to stop it. I realized recently that it is really more of me trying to explore alternate cultures and make my own culture, so to speak. And so it still fits what I'm doing in the long term of my life. It still fits being a long-term project. So I'm totally on board with it. It still works. But the rest of it, sadly, I think that I'm going to have to stop working for it. Like, Ron, I think this is the last project I'm going to be working with Ron on for a while, at least, just because I just found the spoons. And I mean, frankly, it's not paying. I get a percentage of the royalties that he makes off of these books, and he doesn't sell a whole lot of these books. So there's nothing wrong with that, except that I'm making like 10 cents off of the 3 books he sells every year. So I've made a whole whopping 30 cents, and not enough to pay anything. Not even really enough to buy a soda with. So it's fine. It's not a problem. I love having my artwork out there, but if I'm not going to be a professional artist anymore, then I need to stand down. It's not helping. So, which is okay. And we've hit the 11 o'clock hour, folks. It's 11 o'clock. I think, double checking my mail real quick to see whether we've got anything coming in from. We'll have to see what happens here. So, oh man, that'd be awesome. Kane, Ewan and Landauer need to hang out someday. Savage Worlds people. Kane's local, Landauer. Well, somewhat local. Somewhere between here and Fort Collins, but still local. So that's actually, you probably have been in the same circles. So it is all good. I haven't seen a change on my thing tomorrow. And the thing is, I really want to go to it, but I really, really, really don't want to get stuck in the snow on the way back. My car's not horrible in snow and ice, but I do need to do a tire rotation, and I know it, and I know my fronts are not running as good as my backs on the car, and I really need to do a tire rotation. It'd be ideal if I could just take it down to my buddy's H-lift and stick it up on the H-lift, but he's in the Springs, so it is what it is. Also, newer cars, I don't know, they've got sensors in those tires, and so I think you have to dink with the. Oh yeah, Landauer, do you know Lee? Landauer might. That seems to be in similar zones with one another. Yeah, so Can is a friend of Lee. So at some point in time, you guys can connect through that. Now you guys are aware of each other. Can doesn't use his real name on screen. So what I'll do, Landauer, is I will PM you so that you'll know who it is. So. I just lost your last name. Oh. There we go. There we go. Just texted it to you so that we don't have to put it out on the open airwaves. Because, Kane uses a screen name, and we've been kind of trying to hold to that because there's been complications. So, Mr. Cheesecakes. No idea what that means. Probably don't want to know what that means. Probably better that way. There's probably a story here, but yeah. So anyway, now I've connected the two of you. You guys can chat via Lee or whatever as time goes on. I, however, gonna bow out for the night here. Oh, I get you. Likes making cheesecakes. I mean, it makes sense. Not gonna lie. Nothing wrong with that. But I do think we are at the end of the show, so I will see you all later. I'm really actually glad to have had all of you guys on here tonight. Really appreciate seeing you guys. It's always great chatting with you. Love having everybody on board. So we'll see you all. I'll try to be on tomorrow. Or no, tomorrow night's Friday night. Actually, I do not have my normal Friday night engagement, so I might actually be on tomorrow night. There's a small chance. We'll see. I might actually also get on and play No Man's Sky. Apparently, they have changed the algorithm again. My planet is different. So says my kid, who my kid's base is right next to my base. And so she was reporting back to me that Earth Ring, which is our planet, is changed. My kid will probably be with me tomorrow night. So this might be a mutual game night where we just broadcast me playing No Man's Sky. I enjoy it. So hope you all have a wonderful evening, and hopefully I may see you tomorrow night. And as always, I hope you all keep your eyes on the stars. Good night.